President Trump, what he's done to this border already has significantly hurt the cartels. They're losing billions of dollars a month because of what President Trump has done. We're going to suffocate these people. We're going to shut them down because if they don't have money.
This illegal secret passage connects Mexico, Ciudad Juarez, and the U.S. city of El Paso in Texas. The tunnel under the Rio Grande River is a little over a meter wide and nearly 2 meters high.
And with the increased security at the border, officials say cartels are turning to teenagers to smuggle people and drugs into the U.S., knowing they'll be more difficult to prosecute.
This particular 16-year-old has already been caught more than 5 times already.
More than 5 times?
More than 5 times bringing people across. But because, again, there's no prosecution, there's no consequences, they keep doing it. That's why the cartels exploit that and they use that to their advantage.
Hundreds of tunnels, some stretched over half a mile, hidden beneath homes, beneath rivers, carved straight through concrete and protected by cartel killers. This was the Sinaloa cartel's silent superweapon, until Trump secretly destroyed them all. But here's the terrifying part. The cartels didn't back down. They adapted. And their new strategy? It could land you or your teenage kid in prison for smuggling drugs, without even knowing it. So how exactly did Trump uncover and destroy these hidden tunnels? And what horrifying new tactic are the cartels using to turn everyday people into drug mules? Trump's secret crackdown on Sinaloa cartel tunnels. In early 2025, U.S. border agents uncovered a hidden tunnel near San Luis Rio, Colorado, just across from Yuma, Arizona. It wasn't finished yet, but what they saw was alarming. The tunnel had clear signs of advanced planning, reinforced wood supports, a sloped entrance, and it was deep enough to avoid surface detection.
Say they're still attempting to repurpose it. You could also see fresh cuts that were being made along that drainage system and the nearby tunnels. Clear signs that smugglers are testing weak points along the border. And smugglers never stop along this system. They're also digging out makeshift tunnels along that drainage system, just finding any entry point to bypass Border Patrol agents.
Investigators believed it was being built for drug trafficking, most likely fentanyl. But this was just one piece of a much larger system. Across Arizona, Texas, and California, multiple tunnels had been discovered over the past year. Some were more than 2,000 feet long, equipped with lighting, ventilation systems, and even rail tracks to transport cargo. These were not just alternative passageways. They were engineered smuggling routes, dug by professionals who knew how to avoid radar and sensors.
Authorities believe this underground route was used to smuggle both migrants and drugs from Mexico to the United States. Mexican authorities have started closing the tunnel on their end and say they're looking for others.
So, how did Trump respond? Well, not exactly as you would expect. While most of the media focused on his push for a physical border wall, Trump quietly shifted his attention underground. The U.S. formed covert partnerships with select units in the Mexican military. These joint operations were designed to detect and collapse cartel tunnels without drawing public attention or political backlash. U.S. intelligence provided thermal imaging, seismic data, and drone surveillance, while Mexican forces, backed by this intel, carried out the actual raids, sometimes collapsing tunnels mid-construction and storming known smuggling hubs. One agent said they targeted buildings suspected of hiding tunnel entrances, many disguised as auto shops, restaurants, or storage units. According to DEA sources, names like Joe's Pizza Shop and Jose's Auto Repair showed up repeatedly as fronts for tunnel networks. The most explosive moment came during an operation in the Sinaloa cartel's home base in Culiacan. According to Mexican officials, the military launched a massive operation to capture a cartel boss named Jorge Humberto El Pérez Figueroa. He was a top lieutenant for Los Chapitos, the Sinaloa cartel's faction led by El Chapo's sons. But when Mexican forces moved in, he opened fire. The soldiers killed him in the shootout. At the same time, they uncovered a tunnel beneath the neighborhood of Tierra Blanca. This particular tunnel is believed to have been the same tunnel used months earlier by one of El Chapo's sons, Ivan Archivaldo Guzman, to escape a federal ambush. The tunnel stretched over 2,600 feet, connecting 2 properties, and even had an air circulation system. Agents reportedly found buckets, shovels, and a hidden bathroom exit, which confirmed that it was being used actively as a high-value escape route. These operations made one thing clear: the cartel's tunnel strategy was massive, organized, and expanding fast. They spend months, even years, digging and reinforcing these tunnels. Some are 20 meters or more underground, so deep that traditional scanning equipment can't even pick them up. That's why authorities have to rely on drones, thermal sensors, and seismic data to detect any underground movement. But even when one tunnel is found and destroyed, another one pops up nearby, and it gets even more dangerous for agents. One border agent in Texas explained how they have to be extra careful when patrolling certain areas.
Once they start digging holes like that, you gotta be extra careful and not just look at the actual drain, but look around, and that's how we found that other one.
They say they're finding multiple tunnels being built at the same time, often within a few miles of each other. And here's what's really alarming. Most of these tunnels are only partially built. That means after the cartels start the digging, they pause and then wait for the right moment to finish, like when Border Patrol agents move to another area. Shifting tactics after tunnel losses. After losing so many of their tunnels, the cartels didn't back down. They simply changed tactics. And what they came up with next is even more dangerous, because now, ordinary people are getting caught up in it, sometimes without even knowing. One of the most disturbing methods is called the blind mule tactic. This is where the cartels use unsuspecting drivers to move drugs across the U.S. border, and these drivers have no idea they're now part of a smuggling operation.
Cartels are getting desperate, using yet another new tactic to get drugs across the border. Unsuspecting drivers. These so-called blind mules are bringing drugs over the border without even knowing they're doing it.
So, here's how it works. Cartel members would pick a car, usually something low profile, like a family SUV or a commuter sedan. They sneak in and stash drugs in hidden compartments or attach drug packages with magnets underneath the car. Then, they plan a GPS tracker so they can follow the car from the Mexican side until it crosses into the US and recover the drugs once it's safe. In the San Diego and El Paso sectors, agents have started seeing this tactic more and more. And in some cases, the drugs are hidden in places you wouldn't even think to check.
And here are some other clever ways that they have been caught attempting to move their stashes. Look at this load of nearly 450,000 pills that were hiding in folding chairs at the Nogales port of entry a few weeks ago. Also in Nogales, the port director reporting nearly 259,000 pills were concealed in what they're calling collars attached to the rims of mounted tires.
Another case involved 259,000 pills packed into plastic collars on the inside of car tires. One man even tried to wear the drugs, strapping 10 pounds of fentanyl to his body like a belt. And then there's the old school method that still hasn't gone away, swallowing the drugs or hiding them inside the body. Victor Avila, a former Homeland Security investigator, says cartels treat smuggling like a business, and that's exactly what we're seeing now.
Think of it as any other business, and you have your product that you have to get out, and if you don't get out that product, you don't get paid. And so they will resort to whatever it is that they have to resort to move that product out of it.
Some drivers only find out what's happened after they're arrested. Others never even realize they were used. That's why agents are now trained to ask questions that sound a lot like airport security. Was your car left unattended? Did anyone else have access to it? Because if your car was at a mechanic shop, a parking lot, or even a car wash, there's a chance you became a cartel smuggler without even knowing it. These are all happening because of the Trump effect. He has made border restrictions a lot tighter, so much so that it is now nearly impossible for the cartels to brazenly carry out their smuggling operations. So, they're now reaching into their bag of old tricks and recycling risky methods they had used decades ago. Only now, the drugs are stronger, the stakes are higher, and the victims are often innocent. Even when agents catch someone, it's hard to know if they're guilty or just a pawn in the cartel's game. That makes the investigations longer and prosecutions more difficult. The child soldiers. How cartels are weaponizing the youth. Now, if you thought this story couldn't get any worse, then you have to think again. Because now, the cartels are going after teenagers. They're not just recruiting them into their smuggling operations, they're training them to kill, to torture, and to become loyal foot soldiers in a growing criminal army. And it's happening right now, in towns all across Mexico. One of the most chilling stories comes from a girl named Sol. She was just 12 years old when she joined a cartel. At first, they treated her like family. They told her she was loved. They gave her food, clothes, and a place to stay, things she didn't have at home.
They always told me, "You are our little sister, the youngest, and we love you very much." They said many beautiful things that I believed.
But that changed quickly. Her first job was to be a lookout. Then they gave her a gun. A few months later, they asked her to help with a kidnapping. That job turned into torture and then murder. Sol took a life before she turned 13. Now at 20, she's in a rehabilitation center in central Mexico, trying to rebuild her life. She doesn't say how many people she killed, but her psychologist and lawyer both believe her story is real, and Sul is not alone. Reuters recently interviewed 10 current and 6 former child assassins, along with cartel operatives, and the pattern is always the same. These kids come from broken homes, often surrounded by violence and addiction. The cartels offer them stability, money, and purpose. And in return, they get something even more valuable: loyal soldiers who are disposable and legally protected by age.
A child in organized crime actually lasts very little time. Their life is ephemeral because they become disposable bodies.
The U.S. Bureau of International Labor Affairs estimates that over 30,000 children are already working for criminal groups in Mexico. Advocacy groups believe the real number could be closer to 200,000 at risk, and the cartels are using modern tools to reach them. Recruiters are now targeting kids on TikTok, Facebook, and even inside online games. They promise fast money and a sense of belonging. Some kids get picked up directly by family members already working in the cartel. Others are lured in through fake friendships or online challenges. One 16-year-old boy from Mexico was recently arrested in Texas after smuggling 2 men across the border. It was his 6th time getting caught, and when agents found him hiding in the back of a pickup truck, he didn't seem scared at all. He even flipped them off.
He was promised $220 a head for these 2 guys, and he didn't care that he was sitting there in cuffs. Agents say he was combative, resisted arrest, he was kicking the inside of the truck, and he was so brazen that he actually flipped us off multiple times.
But that attitude changed when he learned that this time he was being charged with a felony for human smuggling. Now the crazy thing is, he's not the only one.
Check out the moments when they apprehended another 16-year-old who they believe was the guide of a group of 6, showing the trend is in full force out here in the RGV. And we were there as they tracked this guy. He was laid up trying to evade law enforcement, and then he didn't want to get up and walk out with us either. 4 in that group, they were apprehended. 2 went back to Mexico.
Under a new state policy, Texas troopers are now pairing up with Border Patrol to arrest and prosecute minors involved in smuggling. The goal is to create real consequences and hopefully stop the cycle. But the cartels know this too. That's why they use kids in the first place. They're harder to prosecute, cheaper to pay, and easier to replace. And when things go wrong, the cartel doesn't step in to protect them. They cut them loose, or worse, kill them. This is the world that Sul grew up in. And now, hundreds, maybe thousands of kids just like her are still trapped in it. Despite programs launched by past Mexican presidents and even some new campaigns under President Claudia Sheinbaum, there has been little real progress. Meanwhile, the cartel violence keeps spreading like a wildfire. Public executions and war for control. In May 2025, 5 musicians from a local Mexican band called Grupo Fugitivo mysteriously disappeared near Reynosa.
It's a city near the U.S. border that has become synonymous with cartel brutality. Their disappearance triggered a frantic search, with distraught relatives reporting ransom demands.
The artists were on their way to perform at what they thought was a private party. But when they arrived at the location, it was just an empty lot. Their SUV was later found abandoned, and their trailer full of instruments was dumped nearby. 4 days later, their bodies were found burned and dumped on the outskirts of the city. This tragedy shocked the entire region, and people marched in protest. Families held vigils and reportedly blocked the international bridge between Reynosa and Far, Texas, demanding answers.
During this operation, state and federal law enforcement forces arrested 9 individuals considered to be likely responsible for the mentioned events and who are known to be members of a criminal cell of the Gulf Cartel.
According to Tamaulipas Attorney General Irving Barrios Mojica, surveillance footage and cell phone data helped track the musicians' last known movements.
Police believe the suspects acted on orders from a man known as M47, a local boss in the Gulf Cartel's Metros faction. Now the crazy thing is, this is not the first time something like this has happened.
This isn't the first time musicians have suffered at the hands of cartels. In 2013, 17 members of the band Combo Colombia were executed under similar circumstances.
So now the question is, why target musicians? Well, that's because in cartel culture, music is more than just entertainment. It's a weapon. For years, some bands have been paid by drug lords to perform a notorious genre of music called narco corridos. These are songs that glorify cartel leaders by turning them into folk heroes. These songs often tell stories of revenge, power, and wealth. painting men like El Chapo and El Mencho as untouchable legends. But when musicians play songs that honor one cartel, they risk offending another, and the consequences can be deadly. Back in April, the U.S. government revoked the visas of the band Los Alegres del Barranco after they projected the face of Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera, leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, during a concert. U.S. officials said it promoted criminal violence. Even worse, artists who refuse to perform cartel songs have been threatened, attacked, and in some cases, killed. This use of music as propaganda is part of a larger campaign of fear, and it doesn't stop with musicians. The violence in states like Guanajuato has become so extreme that even the Catholic Church is speaking out. In San Felipe, cartel gunmen recently killed 7 individuals, including young people, in a public plaza. The gunmen reportedly left 2 banners at the scene with messages from the Santa Rosa de Lima gang, one of the cartels battling for control of the region. These banners are public warnings. They usually include threats to rival cartels or accusations that the victims broke cartel rules. It's psychological warfare, and Guanajuato has become ground zero. In 2024 alone, the state recorded 3,151 murders, the most in all of Mexico. Tourists still visit its historic towns, but locals live in fear. Shootings have happened at rehab centers, in theaters, and on public streets. One case that shook the nation was the execution of 12 police officers in different parts of the state.
And the police were going on a road there, and they were ambushed by about 30 armed men. The police chief and his number 2 were both killed at the scene, along with another 5 officers. And 6 officers were then taken hostage and were about an hour later found on a road who'd been tortured and handcuffed and killed.
This happened less than 24 hours after gunmen attacked a rehab facility in the same area. The church, which rarely takes political stances in Mexico, called the violence a sign of a weakened social fabric, impunity, and the absence of peace. And they're right. Cartels are no longer just fighting over drugs or tunnels. They're now fighting for control over public space, public attention, and even culture. Whether it's through message banners, music, mass killings, recruiting youths, or building tunnels, they're trying to send one message: we are in charge, and we're everywhere. So, now that the cartels are using everyday people as blind couriers, do you think there's any chance that an innocent person might be sitting in jail somewhere for a crime they didn't commit? Also, do you think shutting down these tunnels was really a win since the cartels have already adapted and evolved? Or did this just make them smarter and more dangerous? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth videos like this. Meanwhile, click on any of the cards on your screen right now to watch more of our videos.